Good evening, everyone, and welcome to All the Way 2016, the third selection in our current miniseries, POTUS in the Movies, directed by Jay Roach with Bryan Cranston, Frank Langella, and Melissa Leo. The screenplay was adopted by Robert Schenken from his 2012 Tony-winning Broadway play of the same name. He portrays Johnson as an amazing bundle of contradiction, someone who seems at once too vulgar for the job and at the same time just right for it. Steven Spielberg was one of the producers, and he and Schenken agreed that the adaptation of Schenken's Broadway play would be a complete cinematic reimagining of the original story. The playwright cut large segments out of the original screenplay and wrote many new scenes, eliminating some characters and inventing new ones. One example is the scene in the very beginning of the movie in which LBJ enters the Oval Office right after he makes his surprise announcement to Congress that he's going to go all out to pass Kennedy's Civil Rights Bill, in which LBJ remains completely silent. This scene is meant to convey LBJ's sense of awe as he enters the Oval Office for the first time as president, and finds the office still full of Kennedy's personal memorabilia. We sense Johnson's awareness that JFK's power is still everywhere in that room. Cranston lets us see without uttering one word that he feels the dead weight of the presidency falling on his shoulders. New scenes were written for Martin Luther King Jr., portrayed by Anthony Mackie, and new dialogue was written expanding the role of Senator Richard Russell of Georgia with relation to LBJ. All the Way focuses on the first year of Johnson's presidency as he was serving out the remainder of John F. Kennedy's term. It highlights both his political skills and his personal insecurities, both because of and in light of his larger-than-life personality. The film was well received by critics who offered special praise for Cranston's performance. Rotten Tomatoes said on its website that All the Way is an engrossing portrayal of a complicated man during a pivotal moment in U.S. history. Neil Gensingler wrote in the New York Times that this version of Schenken's Tony Award-winning play allows Cranston to work the close-ups and liberates him from the confines of a TV set. Genslinger also said that the film is solid historical drama and Mr. Cranston's performance is a gem. The first half of All the Way focuses on Johnson's efforts to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The film makes use of archival clips showing the arguments to oppose the legislation, including those of Governor George Wallace of Alabama, who was one of Johnson's principal opponents in the political debates over the proposed law. Halfway throughout the film, Schenken turns to the presidential campaign of 1964, showing LBJ's growing paranoia about his opponent, Senator Barry Goldwater of Arizona, and a possible challenge from Bobby Kennedy, who had been Attorney General during his brother's administration. Plot summary. 48 years ago, on November 22, 1963, John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, making Lyndon B. Johnson, former senator from Texas and Vice President of the United States, the next American president. One of LBJ's first moves as president was to reaffirm the government's intention to pass Kennedy's Civil Rights Act, which was drafted while JFK was still in office. This bill gave people of all races the same rights, including voting rights, access to education, and public facilities. But it generated deep opposition among members of Congress, even among Johnson's own Democratic Party. Johnson had to use all his political will and cunning to get the bill passed in Congress. The second half of the movie focuses on Johnson's 1964 fight to win the presidency in his own right. Fun facts about the film. Immediately after the signing ceremony for the 1964 Civil Rights Act, Senator Russell walks off into an adjoining room, obviously very upset. we see him standing and looking at a portrait of former President Harry S. Truman, as Johnson follows him into the room. This is important because Truman also tried to pass a civil rights bill in 1948. Many of the scenes in the film are based on real transcripts and conversations. LBJ plays a practical joke on Hubert Humphrey while driving around his Texas ranch. He drives their open-top car right into a pond, where to Humphrey's shock and surprise, it floats on the surface. LBJ actually owned an aqua car, a vehicle which could function as both car and boat, and was built only in the period from 61 to 65. LBJ played this same practical joke on many of his friends. Frank Langella, who plays Richard Russell, is 6'3" tall. His height had to be concealed during scenes with the Johnson character because Russell was actually shorter than LBJ. Johnson continued the surveillance of Martin Luther King Jr. that had been authorized under the Kennedy administration. As a result of listening to the FBI tales of King and his associates, remarks about King's extramarital affairs were made public by several prominent officials, including LBJ, who once said that King was a hypocritical preacher. When Johnson is seen fitting a suit with his tailor in the Oval Office while talking on the phone to Hubert Humphrey, he makes some crude remarks to the tailor about the fit of his pants. These comments were extracted from transcripts of LBJ's phone calls available in the Johnson Library in Austin, Texas. Another incident in which Johnson conducts a meeting from the lavatory adjacent to his office is also drawn from known sources. Both these incidents are also shown in another Johnson biopic released in 2016 called LBJ, directed by Rob Reiner and starring Woody Harrelson, which is easily available from Netflix or public library collections if you're interested in comparisons. Martin Luther King is seen giving his Nobel Prize acceptance speech in November 1964, just before the election, but it was actually not delivered until December 10th, 1964. The film shows the Swedish Nobel Committee announcing the Peace Prize, when in fact it's the Norwegian Committee that announces and presents that award. At one point, we see Secretary of Defense Robert S. McNamara informing the President of a possible torpedo attack on the USS Maddox, an event which was leaked to the press. He's referring to the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which led to a full escalation of the Vietnam War. It's now widely believed that these events were distorted or fabricated, with McNamara deliberately leaking the information to manipulate public opinion regarding American involvement in the war. Though LBJ was a naval officer, we see a Marine Corps service flag in the Oval Office. There is no such flag in the replica office in the Johnson Library. He also wears a service pin in his lapel, which references a Marine Corps medal. Things to look for: Harry Truman's portrait in the room adjacent to the Oval Office, Johnson's aqua car, Richard Russell, always seen as shorter than Johnson, although Frank Langella is much taller than Bryan Cranston, the Marine Corps service flag in the Oval Office and the service pin in LBJ's lapel, the scene in which Johnson instructs his tailor about his trousers, and the scene in which he conducts a meeting from the confines of the Oval Office restroom, the wrong Nobel Committee announcing and conferring the Nobel Peace Prize on MLK, King delivering his Nobel acceptance speech on the wrong day, McNamara's report on the alleged torpedoing of a U.S. ship in the Gulf of Tonkin. Now it's time to view All the Way. Sit back, settle down. Please remember it may take a few minutes for the film to roll. Enjoy.